Imagine, imagine being traded into a literal nightmare simply because your family thought wealth equated to happiness.
Yeah, that is a terrifying thought.
Right. Today we're exploring a story of just crushing oppression, unimaginable sacrifice, and a redemption that honestly asks far more questions than it answers.
It really does.
So welcome everyone to the Simplified Summary YouTube channel. If you're someone who enjoys gaining deep, thorough knowledge that respects your time.
Which we all do, right?
Exactly. And if you love uncovering the hidden layers of classic literature, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your valuable comments below. We really do read them all.
We do, yeah. Your insights are what make these deep dives so worthwhile.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive is to extract the core narrative from a classic Hindi story called Swarg Ki Devi.
Which translates to the goddess of heaven, right? It's penned by the legendary Munshi Premchand from his Mansarovar collection.
Right. And we really want to focus entirely on the journey of the protagonist, Leela. We're looking at how this story navigates the lethal consequences of prioritizing wealth over character.
Yeah, and more importantly, we're going to tear apart the incredibly complex and frankly kind of troubling nature of forgiveness as it's presented in the source material.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it all starts with the criteria for her arranged marriage, which is just, it's wild.
Oh, it's a financial audit, basically. Her father, Babu Faratas, is searching for a groom. And, in Premchand's era, arranged marriages were often these social mergers.
Right.
But Faratas takes it to this clinical extreme. He prioritizes wealth and property above absolutely everything else.
So character and education are just like completely pushed to the side.
Exactly. They are entirely secondary. Which leads him straight to the chosen groom, Sitasaran.
Who on paper seems to tick all of those superficial boxes, right?
Right. Sitasaran is the son of Lala Sansaran. He's an only son, he's handsome, he has a modest amount of education.
But the text reveals a very dark reality hiding behind all that inheritance.
A really dark reality. His family built their massive fortune entirely on cunningness and deceit.
And it wasn't just like a byproduct of ruthless business. It was their core philosophy. They actively view deceit as the secret to a successful life.
Which sets up this devastating contrast because Leela was raised in an environment that explicitly valued truth and nonviolence.
Yeah, she grew up with like an abundance of fresh air and light, literally and metaphorically.
And then she's thrust into her new in-laws' home, which the source literally describes as feeling like a dark dungeon.
Oh, man.
Just opening your mouth to speak is treated as a sin against the family hierarchy there.
It's like planting a sun-loving flower in a toxic pitch-black cave just because the cave happens to be lined with gold.
That is a perfect analogy. The pressure differential is exactly what breaks her. I mean, if she had been raised in a cynical, calculating environment, she might have had the psychological armor to survive that household.
She could have played their games.
Exactly. But because she was raised to value transparency, she's entirely defenseless against a family that, weaponizes deceit. Her moral clarity is a fatal vulnerability there.
Which brings us to the actual architecture of that oppression. Because she's systematically broken down by a truly terrifying mother-in-law.
Oh, the mother-in-law is the ultimate tyrant.
Okay.
And the imagery Premchand uses here is vital. She sits all day, heavily covered in jewelry, with her pan box.
And the pan box, for context, is for betel leaves, right?
Yeah, exactly. Chewing precariotin all day in this cultural setting is this status symbol of ultimate leisure. It visually communicates that she doesn't lift a finger. She just dictates reality from the center of the web.
And she is relentlessly cruel about policing Leela's reality. I mean, she constantly mocks Leela's basic human desires.
Right, and we aren't talking about extravagant demands.
No, Leela just wants to, stand on the terrace. She wants a tiny bit of fresh air.
And the mother-in-law treats this as an absolute scandal. She frames a woman's desire for sunlight as a direct threat to the family's honor. It's so suffocating. Which brings us to the husband, Sitasaran. Because he isn't blind to this abuse, is he?
No, he's not. He actively sees Leela's health deteriorating in this dark room. And he makes this really weak, tentative attempt to reason with his mother.
And he's immediately shut down.
Instantly, his mother berates him and weaponizes his gender against him. She literally tells him that a, quote, real man should make his wife tremble with a mere look.
Ugh, that's so toxic.
So faced with losing his status in his mother's eyes, Sitasaran just cowers. He chooses conformity.
I really have to push back on Sitasaran's character here, because is his passive defense actually worse than the mother-in-law's overt cruelty?
That's a great question.
I mean, the mother-in-law believes she's upholding tradition, however twisted that is, but Sitasaran clearly sees the physical damage being done to his wife.
Right.
And he still chooses his own comfort and compliance over her survival. That feels like a much deeper, more insidious betrayal. It absolutely is, because it removes Leela's only theoretical ally. And Sitasaran's silence paves the way for the horrific climax of Leela's physical decline.
The childbirth.
Yes. During childbirth, Leela is forced into the Sar.
And the Sora was a traditional confinement room, right? Meant to protect the mother and newborn from infection.
Originally, yes, it was a protective measure. What's fascinating here is how the Sar functions as a metaphor for the family's outdated, suffocating mindset.
Because in this house, it's basically a torture chamber.
Exactly. Driven by ignorance and blind faith, the room is kept completely devoid of fresh air, light, and basic sanitation.
Just filled with dampness and foul odors. Oh, God.
Yeah. And this weaponized ignorance is devastating. The environmental torture causes Leela to lose her child.
Her Santon shock.
Right, that unimaginable grief. And the sheer physical toll strips away her health entirely. She becomes a hollowed-out shadow of the woman who entered that marriage.
It's that pitch-black cave weaponized during her most vulnerable moment. And the mother-in-law is the warden.
Which highlights a really crucial mechanism of patriarchy. The mother-in-law's internalized misogyny enforces the oppressive system just as brutally as any man could.
Right. She survived the machinery of her youth by becoming its most ruthless operator.
Precisely. She polices the boundaries of that dark dungeon without an ounce of mercy. Because granting Leela sunlight would mean acknowledging the darkness of her own life.
Okay, but wait. We leave Leela physically destroyed, grieving her child, entirely powerless. But then the narrative does something really jarring.
It jumps forward.
Yeah, it shifts forward in time, and suddenly we learn that Leela had the authority to banish Sitasaran to the streets.
Right, she throws him out.
How does she go from a helpless victim trapped in the Prosor to having the power to throw her husband out of his own house?
Yeah.
Like, what's the connective tissue there?
Well, the loss of the child shatters the illusion of the family's untouchability. A family structure built entirely on deceit and rigid control eventually faces a structural collapse.
So the moral bankruptcy catches up to them.
Exactly. The internal hierarchy destabilizes. Sitasaran loses his grip on his inheritance and his authority.
And Leela?
Leela has already lost everything: her health, her child, her spirit. She hits rock bottom. And paradoxically, having nothing left to lose strips away her fear.
Wow.
She no longer has to play by the rules of a house that killed her child. So when the power dynamic shifts, she forces him out.
So he's left to wander the streets in search of shelter, completely adrift.
Yes, but the story doesn't end with righteous vengeance.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
We pick up with a conversation where a friend is actually mocking Sitasaran.
Teasing him for being back under his wife's control.
Right, because Leela actually opened her doors and took him back in when he was at his absolute lowest.
And this triggers a massive confession from Sitasaran. He finally sees what she's done for him.
He notes that she completely suppressed her immense grief over her dead child, right?
Yeah, and she suppressed the reality of her ruined health. She even put on her jewelry and forced a smile specifically to bring him joy.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because I don't buy that this is a healthy reconciliation.
No.
No. It's like she takes the shattered bricks of her own demolished home to build a protective fortress for the very person who let the house be destroyed.
That's a powerful way to put it.
And Sitasaran reaches this grand conclusion where he regrets his harsh words, realizes he couldn't undo the damage even if he sold all his property, and declares her a Swarg Ki Devi, a goddess of heaven.
Sent solely to protect a weak creature like him.
Right. But is his regret actually about her pain? Or is he just relieved she took him back and absolved him? Why would a woman who survived a literal torture chamber put on jewelry and smile for the man who let it happen?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at the psychology of trauma and conditioning.
Okay.
What Leela is doing isn't necessarily a conscious choice of divine forgiveness. It's the mechanism of fawning as a trauma response.
Oh, wow. So she's not smiling because she's magically healed.
Exactly. She's smiling because, in a patriarchal system, a woman's survival often depends on managing the emotional fragility of the men in her life. It's a textbook fawn response to pacify the threat.
That reframes everything. So when Sitasaran calls her a goddess of heaven,
We have to deconstruct that title. Sitasaran views her forgiveness as a divine, beautiful act of grace. But what it actually does is highlight a deeply tragic societal expectation.
Because by calling her a goddess, it rationalizes the suffering. If
Yes.
she's a goddess, her capacity to absorb pain is superhuman, which conveniently absolves the humans who inflicted that pain.
Precisely. To achieve the status of a goddess in this framework, a woman must essentially annihilate her own human needs. She must swallow her grief, ignore the destruction of her body, and smile so her husband doesn't have to feel guilty.
So his realization of his own weakness doesn't undo this systemic rot. It just reframes her forced martyrdom as a virtue.
Exactly. It makes you realize that the title Swarg Ki Devi isn't a celebration by Premchand. It's a cynical critique of the pedestal itself.
The pedestal is just another form of the sore. It's another confined space designed to keep a woman trapped, just built out of reverence instead of bricks.
Premchand was famous for using these microdynamics of the domestic sphere to critique the macro rot of society.
This brings up so much for us to reflect on. I mean, think about your own lives, the relationships you observe, the modern structures of society today.
We still see the echoes of Babu Harappas everywhere.
We really do. How often do we prioritize material wealth or job titles over emotional safety and basic human kindness when evaluating partnerships?
The narrative is a stark warning. Ignoring the red flags of a toxic environment, ignoring the dark cave just because the walls are lined with gold guarantees catastrophic consequences.
Because Leela's scars were irreversible, regardless of Sitasaran's eventual apologies.
Right.
So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over today.
Right.
Building on this idea of Leela's ascension to a so-called goddess, look at how we treat victims in our world right now. By elevating victims to the status of goddesses or saints simply for enduring unimaginable abuse and offering boundless forgiveness, do we actually strip them of their humanity?
That's a heavy question.
Does society demand this saintliness to strip victims of their completely valid right to be angry? Does putting a woman on a divine pedestal secretly serve as a convenient way to excuse the monsters who put her through hell in the first place?
Demanding divine forgiveness really is often a societal defense mechanism to avoid dealing with justified human anger.
It's a complicated thought, but a crucial one to sit with. We really hope this deep dive brought you a memorable aha moment today.
And gave you a new lens through which to view these classic dynamics.
Absolutely. If it did, please remember to subscribe to the Simplified Summary YouTube channel, leave a like on this video, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts on Leela's ultimate choice. Do you see her as a divine figure of grace, or a tragic victim of a society that demanded her silence in exchange for survival?
We truly look forward to reading your perspectives and seeing how you interpret Premchand's layered critique.
Thank you so much for taking this journey with us. Remember, before you agree to live in a cave, no matter how much gold is plastered on the walls, make sure there is air to breathe. See you on the next deep dive.